All right, Profit Podcast listeners, we have a special guest on the show today. Welcome, Tayler. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well this Monday morning. We're recording things. So, no, the sun is shining. I know that before we started hitting record, we were talking about how the weather here in San Diego is just perpetually beautiful, and that's actually not the case. So I am very grateful that the sun is out on this fall day.
Yes, awesome. And I love your shirt. This plays into Tayler and I meeting in person. Well, it's not the exact same shirt because
it is the exact same shirt.
Is it the exact same one?
This is the shirt. This is the twinning
when we
shirt.
Were twinning. Okay, maybe it was the lights that I was thinking it was because mine's blue. Mine's blue and white stripes. So that one's more a tealish. That's actually more my brand color. So I need to know where you got that shirt. But we were at Craft and Commerce earlier this summer, and I had realized I'd walked around to all the different vendor booths. And then I was like, wait, I don't know what her vendor booth is, but we had actually passed each other and we were both like, hey, nice shirt. Like it looks really cute. And then I was like, okay, wait, you're the same person. You actually have a vendor booth here. So let's just kind of start there. What did you think about Craft and Commerce this year? Had you been before? Was that your first experience? Like, tell me all the things.
It was my first experience at Craft and Commerce, and it was such a good time. Like, I didn't realize how many people that I know from the internet were going to be descending upon Craft and Commerce. And that's always one of the things that gets me so excited because I work, this is Enji HQ, my home office. So there could be days that go by and I'm like, have I left the house?
Yes.
And so whenever I get to go out into the wild and, see people that I interact with on the internet, it's always my favorite. But it was such a fantastic, super well-run conference. I'm not someone who goes to conferences, like someone who has nothing else to do because I have plenty of other things to do. And I don't know, that sounded kind of like an asshole thing to say. If you are someone who can go to conferences all the time, that was not me low-key throwing shade at you.
But it's like you got the budget for it, right? Like I'm like, I don't have a budget to go to every single conference that I could go to. So you're good. Continue.
Correct. Bootstrap startup over here. Yeah. But, I've been to a lot of conferences and, sometimes you can just tell when the event team or the marketing team that put it together hasn't done an event at scale. And Craft and Commerce was the exact opposite. Like it was super well run. The people were amazing. The education was really outstanding. And I loved how they had a good mix of sort of more motivational keynotes and then really tactical breakout workshops. It was just a really good mix and you could get what you needed, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Who was your favorite person that you heard speak from stage?
Ooh, who was, I think it was, is his name John? The one who talked about
John Yushai, the YouTube one?
Yes.
The Beyonce that's like, wait, what? Yes,
I know. Yes. And I was standing in the back when he asked the question, who's the best marketer? And I turned to Brett and I said, Beyonce. And I should have yelled it because I would have nailed that one because someone said Taylor Swift, someone I think said Oprah. And then, I low-key in the back was like, Beyonce, of course.
Duh. You just had to whisper it to your husband. You're like, well, this is clearly what it is. No, he was incredible. Like, he blew my mind with that whole talk and all the examples that he did. So back to your point, it's like the quality of the speakers was so high level and so like impactful and well-researched. Like, I just was like, oh, this wasn't somebody that just threw something together for a webinar like 5 minutes before this presentation. Like it was so well done. So yeah, I love hearing that. And I'm actually going in 2025. So
awesome.
if no one, you get like, this is my little mic drop moment of like, you should come see the other people that are going to be there. Cause it's one of those that I think, circling back to you being a vendor, we're going to talk about your business in a second, but I feel like it's one where they hand select the vendors and the people that are coming to promote. So you don't feel like, I always think about the Emoji Movie. I don't know. Have you seen the Emoji Movie?
I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
I'm the childless, pet-free, responsibility-free adult. So I only catch wind of certain kid movies.
You will relate to this, I promise, because as a business owner and someone that creates content, there's like this one scene where they're like walking through, it's like all the different emojis that you'd find on your phone. And one of them was like a spam. Like it was an email that just like keeps talking. And it's like, hey, you want to buy this? Hey, you want to do that? And it's like, no, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Like there's a firewall for a reason and don't touch it. That's how I feel most vendors are at other conferences. They're just like, hey, come over here. Would you like to put your email address in? And then we'll send you valuable things, which never end up valuable at all. And like when I came over to your booth and you had a demonstration of your product and what it could do, I was like, wait, what? Like, wait, hang on. Because I had been telling you, like we were talking about like what some of the different product suites that are in my tech stack were missing, and your product had all of them. So this is, I was just teeing you up beautifully to talk about, tell us about your business, what the name of your business is, and what you do for content creators and business owners.
Yes. So, I think a lot of people who are listening to this, I mean, you and I are included in this category of business owners who have to do their own marketing, right? Yeah. And, the latter part of the statement that I usually say is that Enji is marketing software for small business owners who have to do their own marketing, but aren't marketing experts, because that then covers, that goes from like, oh, it's most people to, okay, yeah, it's definitely like most people, because the cliche is true. Most of us started our businesses because we were jazzed about doing something. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, there's this thing called marketing. And it's like kind of important. And I've never done it before, but somehow I need to like not suck at it. And so my background is in marketing consulting. And a few years ago, we decided to pick up a big bat and take a big swing and do a crazy audacious thing and turn myself into software so that people who are managing and doing their own marketing actually have one system that has most of the components to it and is simple to use. And, my hope is that we help people really understand what it is they're supposed to do on the marketing side. And then, because that's, basically everyone who ever came to me as a consultant was like, Tayler, just tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. Yeah. And then, I really am trying to build all of the tools that people need to create their calendar and do it consistently, because it's very unsexy, but consistency is super key in all of this. And then the last piece is knowing if your marketing is working. And so we also have built out tools to make it really simple to track your metrics. So, kind of seriously, like the big picture, the marketing machine that you're trying to build and how all the pieces are working together. And so that's what I get up every morning and tippy tap at my computer for obscene number of hours every day.
I love it. And so I have a two-part question, and that is, when you were doing your marketing consultancy, was it for a specific niche, or was it like kind of a spattering of like, oh, there's real estate people, there's, someone that does, brick and mortar, someone does online. And is there like an overarching theme of mistakes that most business professionals are making?
Totally. So this is like so strange because I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I thought I was going to be a teacher, in a community college classroom, being a professor. But B, once I became self-employed and I was like, oh, I have clients. The industry that I landed in was the wedding industry. And because my first clients were a florist here locally, and right next door there was a wedding photographer, and so they were my first clients. And then they were the type of people to actually share, right, and refer the thing that all of a sudden made their marketing different, which was me. And so for a long time, I was really just working with wedding professionals of all types under that big umbrella. But it naturally definitely started to segue into just creative services. So anyone, so website designers, copywriters, photographers that were doing, branding photography and all that kind of stuff. Because there is a sort of connection between the wedding world and the creative services world, where sometimes when people decide that they want to step out of weddings, they step into that space. And so that's really my super comfort space is, okay, if you are a photographer or a website designer or someone who is selling creative based services, yeah, let's talk.
Yeah.
And so it's been a super fun niche to be in. But I have worked with businesses like coffee shops and, there was a local gym that I worked with, but those were always I say this with love, the clients that I booked for the paycheck, not the portfolio piece, because you do that. That's just a part of the game when you're hustling for every dollar that lands in your bank account.
Yeah. And so no matter which, service provider or whoever you're working with, was there like a key thing that when you sat down to create Enji, you were like, oh, this has to be in the product. Like, this is the thing that I saw my clients. It's the same mistake they all made, or it's the thing that I wish that they would have known on day one when they started their business. Like, what was like, if you could pinpoint one thing that was really key to marketing for success for those clients, what would it be?
It's that everybody was winging it. Totally just waking up every day and I was like, maybe I'll do something. Yep. And if I do something, I don't exactly know in this moment what it would be, but I'll figure it out in the next 45 minutes, I guess. And that's exactly the thing that makes marketing so stressful. Yeah. Is in that moment, you're putting this pressure on yourself to basically make a CEO level decision in, my fingers are very close together if you're not watching this, in this much time. Yeah. And then you automatically feel like you're in a pressure cooker, because all of a sudden this pretty simple act feels like it has so much more weight to it. And so the first thing that we ever talked about Enji being was something that helps people create a marketing strategy, so that they've got the lane defined. But then because of that tell me what to do phrase that people would just say to me over and over again, it wasn't just the strategy. It was that the strategy, I really wanted it to create a roadmap of tasks that people could do, so that a lot of the decision making, at least, the first pass of the decision making was done and no one was being left to work from a blank slate. So that's for sure. I call it marketing by accident a lot of days, but whether you call it winging it or flying by the seat of your pants, it all means the same thing, is that there's not an actual plan that you're trying to implement. You're just building the plane as you fly it.
Okay, so I feel like my audience just said, oh, Crystal, you didn't tell us this was going to be a tough love episode, because Taylor's coming in with the truth. Like, I really feel, because I know so many of my audience, they fall into that category of like, I'm not a marketing professional. I just started this podcast and I want to create content. So they know that marketing is important, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be focusing on their content. But then they get into this weird mindset of like, I created this thing. I just want people to find it. Why do I have to talk about it? Like, I already created, because again, there's a lot of solopreneurs. There's a lot of content creators that are here. They're like, I planned this thing. I recorded this thing. I edited this thing. I published this thing. But it's just, I don't have enough energy to talk about. Like, I already talked about it. Like, I want to go take a nap. Like, that's where so many of them fall. So this is really why I wanted you to come on and like just nerd out about digital marketing and talk about like where so many people are falling short. And I do think that they fall into, a lot of the audience falls into that winging it category, or believing that they can just hire someone and not onboard them, not do anything, like just say, oh no, you just like, here's my issue, go fix it. Like, I don't know. I don't want to make any I don't care. Like, please just go fix it and come back to me. So is that kind of the approach that you've seen some people take too?
100%. And then if they take that second approach of, just trying to 100% outsource their marketing without truly onboarding someone or having a documented plan of like, hey, here's how I think about my business, then that's where you get into the space where they come to people like you or me. We just have conversations with folks saying, I hired someone and they're not doing a good job.
Yes.
And I'm like, of course they're not doing a good job. Like, you didn't set them up for success, right? Yep. And the other sort of asterisk on that is a big mistake that I see people making is just hiring a general VA to do their marketing. And a VA is someone who can come and do things for you, right? Like implement, execute, give them a task list, and they will just crush through it. But marketing is not just a task list, right? It is equal parts art and science, right? Yeah. There's mechanics to it, but there's also this very creative component to it. And if you are your brand, I'm assuming that a lot of your audience, their brand is them, right? Yeah. And so when you add that on top of it, then it's like, if you haven't been able to really communicate to this person how you think about things, how you approach things, what are the messages that you need to say, all of these other pieces of marketing, then it's not going to work. So like marketing is this big messy soup of things. And if you build it, they will not come. Yeah. Because the core, I think the way that I like to talk about what marketing is now in plain English is marketing is the things that you do to make sure that people know you exist. And if they don't know that you exist, they're not going to listen to your podcast episode because they don't know it's available. And so I know that you spend all this time planning things out, producing it, publishing it, and just being like, whoo, I did it. But that's just the first phase of things. And then there's this whole other piece to it, which is the marketing piece.
Okay. And now I want to kind of get into that psychology piece of it, right? Because there's a lot of people that, and this is why, like, I have a weekly newsletter. It's called Content Therapy. And it's where I just tell these stories because I'm like, oh, no. I feel like a therapist when I talk to people about their content and their marketing, because they'll say to me like, that's being salesy or that's being braggy. And I don't want to do any of that. I just want to produce the thing. I want to put it out into the world. Yes. And I just want them to come flocking by the millions to my website. But then I literally will have to say, what would happen tomorrow if I just told you you're going to have 1 million visitors to your website? If they came, would they know what to do? Would they get on your email list? Would they know to buy your product or listen to your website? And most of the time, the answer is no. So when when people are coming to use Enji and they're coming to set up their business for success, like what's kind of like, because we talked about like ecosystems, like before we started chatting, I was like, let's talk about a marketing ecosystem or what that could even look like. Like, can you give us an example of what setting your business up for success can look like when you make it to where, oh, I got 1 million people visit my website and they did the thing. They did the thing that I wanted them to do. Like what's the first step just to even get somebody's business to that process?
I mean, the first step is that your website needs to be great. And because all of your marketing, all of it, points people to your website at some point, right? I think the podcast space is a little bit different because oftentimes we're sending people to the platforms that they can, all the streaming platforms. But when push comes to shove, streaming platforms are just like everything else. You don't own that piece of real estate. If that site goes down, you're not going to like call up the Apple team and say, hey, what's going on here? But if your website goes down, then you have the agency to fix it. So your website 100% needs to be a solid foundation, and your copy needs to be great. Your, to use a jargony term, like your UX and UI, which is user interface and user experience, those need to be really well thought out. And if anyone's listening to this and going like, I have never heard those letters before, then just think of it as how the design of your website is guiding people to different parts and towards some sort of ultimate action that you want them to take. And so the other thing is making sure that there is a pathway to someone becoming a purchaser, however that looks for your business, on your website. Like that there are no dead ends.
Yeah.
So, that is always step one. It doesn't matter what type of business you run, if you're product or service based or whatever. I'm like, is your website functional, and is your website communicating all the things that it needs to communicate? Because it is there working for you 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And if it's not doing its job, then that's only getting in your way of downloads, sales, bookings, whatever it is you're trying to get people to convert to. So that's always the first and most important piece in a marketing ecosystem in the age of the internet, and within a space where someone is doing a lot of digital marketing.
Yeah. And I love this so much. When you're talking about UI and UX, like I immediately am bringing it back the spam in the Emoji Movie, because it's like, if you go out to Pinterest and you're looking for a recipe and you go to one of these sites, I have one anxiety just knowing that as soon as I open this link, it's just going to be like pop up, ads, like all of that, because they're not thinking about their UI, UX. All they're thinking about is clicks. They just want clicks to their site. They want views. The eyeballs is where they are making their money. Most of you listening to this today, that's not where your money is. Your money's in your services, your digital products, and all these other places. So when you think about UI and UX, I always put myself in my customer's shoes. It's like, what do I want to see? So I'm so curious, you like as a consumer, like, do you have any examples of like a website that you just love, or someone that you're like, I feel so calm and peaceful when I go to their website?
Ooh, that is a good question, actually. And I have an easy answer. You met Davy Jones and Caleb at ConvertKit at the Craft and Commerce. And their website, so their company is Badao.
Yes.
Always said with exclamation,
Badao.
right?
Yes.
I love their website so much. And I know that Davy's wife, Krista, who's a very talented website designer, she designed the website, and then someone from the Show It team designed the brand. But it is simple and it's easy to navigate. And aesthetically, I like looking at it.
Yes.
And I'm not just being like punched right hook, left foot, just hooks all over the place with, even though they are a pop-up piece of software.
Exactly.
I'm not being like bombarded with things.
Oh.
And so I think the Badao website is a really great example of how you can have something that communicates important information, but is still clean and easy to get here, there, and everywhere. And it's something that's quite honestly fun, because the brand is fun, the colors are fun, and I just love it.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good one. We'll link to that in the show notes, because they have, I don't remember if it's a case study section on the main page or if it's on a different page, but they did it so well where they showcased testimonials, but it wasn't even like, and maybe it's because they're a SaaS company, right? But I remember looking at them and thinking like, oh, these are fun ideas. Like this is like, and they were actively, again, going back to the sales piece of it, they were actively trying to sell me this product that's like, here's how this person used it. But the testimonials for it, or the case studies, were done in such an easy way where it didn't feel like I was being assaulted by marketing. Like it was just like, oh, this is lovely. This is so nice here. I will come back. I will visit again.
Yep. No, the team over there is super smart. And, I would put them in the startup phase of things too, because they, recently took over that company. And so they're, reimagining it and all that kind of fun stuff. And so it's fun to also have Davey as a friend who's on a similar journey, because I know that he and the team are they're pouring everything into it. And it's nice. It's really nice to see how intentional everything is. So, that's one of the best things that anyone can do with their marketing is be really intentional with it.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about you. So I was just about to call you a startupper. I don't know if that's the right phrasing that we
Yeah,
want
I'm a
to go
startupper.
with.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're a founder, like you're doing
Yeah.
all these things. And I'm like, ooh, startupper sounds right. Like
I
there are
like it.
startuppers. We're just making up words over here. But
Yes.
I'm looking at like kind of the digital landscape and all the things. So when we're recording this, there's a lot of big changes for a lot of the SaaS companies that have been around for a while, right? Like Kajabi just did this huge rebrand. Kit just announced their huge rebrand. So I feel like a lot of people are trying to get like a fresh take, whether it's, oh, now we have AI integrated into what we're doing, or we're fresh on the scene, even though we've been around for a decade, like kind of thing. So as a founder, as a startupper, with your business, what does that look like? Like for you to, you have customers, you have members, or, I would say like people, your users that are using your product on a regular basis. What is that even like? Like, tell us what it's like, in 2 minutes, what it's like to be a SaaS founder. And because you said you wanted to be a teacher, like it's so different. Like it's a different part of your journey that you never imagined that. So what is that like?
Yes. And quickly before we dive in, I'm like, someone needs to come up with a better word for what we call our users. Cause it sounds like we're like peddling drugs and we're looking for
You're
users.
A cult leader or something.
I know,
you're just
but users, subscribers, we always default to users, but I digress. So, the experience of starting a startup is like, it's kind of outside of yourself in a lot of ways, because the first thing is, if you are the person who's the product visionary, that's, the proverbial startup community talks about certain founders. If you're the product visionary, you have to be able to take these very abstract thoughts and somehow communicate them to other humans in a way that helps them understand exactly what it is you see in your mind and gives them the requirements that they need to be able to even come close to building the right thing, right? So, and those are two very different types of people that tend to be product visionaries on one side and then the engineers on the other. And their brains work differently. Like you typically have someone who is a dreamer, a big thinker, a creative sort of problem solver over here is the product visionary. And then on the other side, you have people whose brains work in zeros and ones.
Yeah.
So that's always an interesting dynamic it's a skill that you need to learn, and you can learn it over time for sure. But, it's for a startup in the space that Enji operates in, which is the SMB space, the small, medium business space. But really, our ideal user and community is built around solopreneurs for the most part. And so we're like looking at micro businesses.
Yeah.
And so the way that then we have to think about what the software is and how it needs to work and like what are the outcomes that people want the software to facilitate, it's very different for someone who's doing their own marketing versus someone who has, even a team of 5 people doing marketing, right? Like the marketing can be at scale at that point if you have 5 people working with you. And if you are doing it by yourself, it's not at scale. But you feel the pressure to somehow do marketing at scale. And the other piece of it is just the relentlessness of all of the things.
Yeah.
Like I have started other businesses before, and a startup is that experience times 100 on all of the steroids with all of the pressure. Yeah. Like it's a very different animal. In general, I don't recommend most people try to do this.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you are in the right space and you have some of the right resources, then it can be the coolest thing that you've ever done. But it is relentless. Like I work obscene number of hours every day. I don't say that as a badge of honor. I do not.
Yeah.
I know it is like very unhealthy. It's like I work a lot of hours. I work a lot over the weekends as well. I still sleep 8 hours a night. I still eat my meals. I still move my body 5 days a week. So I'm not living on the edge. If it sounds like I'm living on the edge, but it takes up all of your brain space.
Yeah.
And when you are not working, you really feel like the I guess guilt would be the right word. Like there's a lot of guilt every moment I step away from it, because I'm like, but I'm trying to build a really big business off of a $29 a month software. Like every moment that I'm not working on it feels like I should be. So that's just the messy soup of all of the things that are just a part of the experience.
Well, and you touched on something that we kind of talked about earlier before we started recording. And I was like, stop. We have to bring this back up. We were talking about just having the grit. And I want you, if you can remember the phrasing that you said, I would love for you to share that, because I think, well, first of all, when did you start Enji? What year did you launch?
We launched in May of 2023, but we worked behind the scenes for 2.5 years just to get to that moment that we hit go on it. So a long time.
I was going to say, what do you remember the phrasing that you said earlier when you were talking about?
I think I do.
Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure that I said you have to have the stomach for a lot of discomfort, of discomfort. And if you can't sit in that space, then you fall into that camp of like, okay, you definitely shouldn't start a startup because it's just discomfort every damn day. There's something that makes me uncomfortable. There's something that makes me go like tweaky in my chair, or makes me want to go take a hot shower and just stand under the faucet. You're like, it's just all of these things. Yeah. And the media typically only shows you the unicorns where you wake up and it's, I'm obsessed with Flowdesk. Flowdesk is one of my favorite little unicorns. They're not little. I should have not said little, because they're at 27 million ARR in 5 years. I would love for that to be us. But that is not the norm. Not the norm. It is it's called a unicorn in the startup world for a reason, because it is this elusive thing that you are extremely lucky to experience if it is your company.
Well, I think that it's such a beautiful tie-in, because I know some people are listening. They're like, well, I'm not a founder. I'm not a startup. I'm creating content. But it goes back to the same mentality and psychology of a lot of people that are listening. They start a podcast and they see people that start podcasts, and all of a sudden they get 10 million downloads in their first year. And then someone listening to this show is like, but I only got 1,000 in the first 4 months of my show. And what am I doing wrong? They quit. They decide to pivot and go a totally different direction. So I'm just so curious, what do you lean on? When you are in that, you're in that discomfort, you're questioning everything, because we've all been there where we're like, am I doing the right thing? Should I go back and get a teaching job? Should I go back and get a 9-to-5? Is this thing so damn hard that I'm not cut out for it? What are some of the resources that you lean on?
My little pocket of community, I am constantly there's a short list of people who I'm very thankful will respond to these texts and answer these phone calls when I'm basically like, am I crazy? Am I fucking crazy? Mm-hmm. Or is this just, is this the norm for what people experience with this? Because when you work by yourself, it is so easy to think that your experience is yours alone and that you did something wrong. Yeah. And so I'm someone who looks for external validation in that regard, where I want to just know that I'm not the only one who is either experiencing this or has experienced it, that it is within within reality to a certain degree, because I don't want to be the outlier in a bad way. Right. But in addition to that, the expectations and goals that you set, I think, are also really important. And sometimes I have changed those numeric goals or expectations that I've had, because rather than just thinking I failed, sometimes it's like, yeah, just drop the number. Drop the number, make it something that is way closer to your reality, where it's just like a little reach instead of a gigantic stretch for the stars. And then you can put yourself in this sort of positive reinforcement loop of, okay, I am actually making a little bit, like little baby steps, versus feeling like you didn't take the giant one that you hoped.
I feel like that's probably some of the best advice we've ever heard on the podcast. And I just like the quote for this whole episode is going to be just drop the number. Like it's drop that expectation of saying, well, I got to get 1 million downloads. Otherwise this is a failure. And it's like, no, what if you just got 100 downloads? Like 100. We're not shooting for tens of thousands, like just 100 or 100 views on a YouTube video or an Instagram post or like whatever it is, because I think you're totally right. It's like, I've done this whole cycle of abuse in my head. That's like, I got to get 10,000 subscribers on, on my YouTube channel or on my email list. And it's like a constant battle. It's like you feel like a punching bag, like you are your own punching bag. But then if I were to say, no, what if I just got 20 in the next 2 weeks or the next month or whatever that number could look like for anybody? And I think that that's just a great mental perspective shift on how we look at our businesses. Super, super helpful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. And one of the other things that I have sometimes thought about is, did I put it in sort of the right part of my marketing plan, in the right part of my marketing funnel? And one of the things with my podcast that I definitely put it in the wrong part of the marketing funnel, for sure. 100%. Hi, my name is Tayler. I make mistakes just like everybody else. I thought that the podcast was going to be more top of funnel, where I was helping people discover me and Enji, and that we would see a lot more people starting an Enji trial after listening to the Pretty Okay podcast. Wasn't the case. But where the podcast actually sits is in that nurture part of our marketing funnel, where someone has already discovered Enji and is like looking at it, trying to figure out if they like it. They want to see who the human is behind it. And so they start listening to the podcast, and then they quickly, I think everyone listening has already like, I get Tayler. It's a space where people can come to get to know me.
Yeah.
And how I think about things. And so that's actually where the podcast sits in our marketing funnel. And so I had to drop the numbers, because I also was like, oh, we're going to get 500 downloads a month. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And didn't happen. We're sitting more in the like 200 a month. It's like, it's fine. But we're getting fewer downloads every month, and that's fine. But it is serving a purpose for the business, because it's now in this nurture phase of marketing versus where I originally had it and how I had originally set numbers around it.
Well, I think that's another gift too that you just gave the audience, is like just reevaluating, like just because a lot of podcasters do use podcasts as their top of funnel. It's their place for a lead magnet, or it's their place for whatever. It doesn't have to be where it is. You could just reserve that for like, hey, I'm attracting my high ticket $20,000 coaching clients, and they'd be the only ones that would get that. And that's, again, to Taylor's point, it's like, you're going to have to drop the number for that, because that's not going to relate to the masses. The masses won't get that. So I love that, and it goes back to what you were talking about with an ecosystem, like thinking about your marketing, not as like, I have to create another Instagram post that's not going to perform and no one's going to like it. No one's going to enjoy it. Like, why am I doing this anyway? It's zooming out and asking, do I even have an ecosystem today? Mm-hmm. And if you don't, like, that's the first place that you start. And this is where I want to get a little braggadocious on Enji, because I told you I would talk about some of the features. And then I want to circle back and talk about your podcast again, because that's super exciting. But Enji, so when you showed me the demonstration, when we were at Craft and Commerce, the thing that I told you, I was like, I love my Asana. I love it so much. And I'm struggling with social media. And you're like, okay, well, go. I did my whole free trial. The thing that was so fascinating to me that I got kicked in the face, like Enji lovingly kicked me right between my eyes and was like, dummy, why have you not seen this before? I had been spending a lot of time again, I'm calling myself out. I was the Instagram person. It's like, I got to put another post because all the experts say you got to put out a post every day and put something in your stories and put everything. And then you got to do the YouTube and the podcast and you got to just the content. But when I really stood back and said, well, where are my leads coming from? And you have this lovely intake form. Everybody listening to this, go to Enji. We're going to have a link to it. And I want you to get a trial so that you can do the intake form that has you, as the business owner, evaluate your own business. Because what I realized, there was a question in there. It's like, where are your leads coming from? Like your best customers. Where are your best customers coming from? Because that's what we all want, right? We want to replicate those best customer relationships. They're not coming from my YouTube. They're not coming from my podcast. They are referrals or they're affiliates. Like these are people already in my community, already familiar with me. So why am I trying to get all these eyeballs from all these other people when the quality relationships and the people I really want to work with are already in my database? Like they're here. And it was like, I can't remember how it was worded, but like on the screen where it says like this is your marketing strategy. And I'm telling y'all have to go you have to have Enji do this for you. It doesn't take long and you can get it done. But it gave me my 3, it was kind of like a Venn diagram of like, these are the 3 things that you should focus on. And referrals and affiliates were the top ones. And I'm like, I felt this immediate pressure come off of me of, oh, that's right. Like those are the easiest people to work with. And those are when I have the most fun is when I have a community full of those people. So there's my experience with Enji. I don't know if you have any any feedback on that or anything else. Analyze it. But yeah.
That's amazing. That's exactly what we're trying to do is there's so much pressure to show up in all of the places and to show up at a pace that is just not sustainable. And it's because my hypothesis around this is because we all have these like aspirational figures that in business that we follow, and all of them specialize in a different thing. And so then all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, this person says I should be doing this, and this person says I should be doing that, and this person says I should be doing that. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, that is too many things, and I can't do it. And so I am a hardcore realist. Like the teacher in me is like, how do we break this down into something that you can actually achieve? And so it is very important to me that we are building simple, realistic marketing strategies for people that someone actually phrased it to me this way. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to start using it. Like basically I'm writing y'all a permission slip to not do certain things because we're just going to focus on the things that are most likely to give you a return on your investment, whether that's time, money, or resources. And as a one-person marketing department, 3 places, honestly, is what you have the capacity for. Like, it's just a fact. And everyone's just in denial about it because of that pressure that we get from the internet. So if that's the only thing that someone takes away from this conversation, I hope that permission slip to just let certain things go, whether that's numbers or marketing channels, that is the thing that people walk away with.
Yeah. And I think it's just a good, like if you haven't evaluated your business from that perspective in a while, like if you just been grinding and you're like, well, this is what I've been doing for the last 5 years and we're kind of chugging along, like you need to do some sort of evaluation on your business. I do it at least once a year where I step back and say, okay, what did I love? What did I not love? Like, what do I want to do more of? And like it really just helped me having that perspective. It's like it's your marketing bestie that's just, on your computer that you can talk to anytime you want. Like that's the thing. And you have the AI like integrated already where it's like, it helps you really make the process so much easier for making decisions. Because again, it's not only the marketing strategy, but it helps you make those decisions where it's like, what do you want to do in the next like 5 to 6 months? Not like, where do you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? Because I know there's a lot of people that get overwhelmed by those ideas. And we live in the digital space that everything is moving at lightning speed anyway. So I think that the practicality is built into every step of Enji, and just the fact that y'all have an integrated like social media scheduler. I don't know if you could talk about that for a second, but that's another piece that's pretty like, oh, cherry on top. Like, let's go. Like, this is going to make my life so much easier. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. I don't feel like small business owners have been set up for success with marketing. And part of the reason that I feel that way is because we all have just been forced into a space where we have to use 7 different pieces of software to do our marketing. And for some people, that's fine, right? If you are very marketing minded and you understand the ecosystem or the machine that you're trying to build, then yeah, you can use 7 pieces of software. But for those of you listening who are like, marketing is so overwhelming to me and I don't know up from down here, then the fewer tabs that you can do it in, the better. And so it was really important to me that we built something that reduced the number of tabs that someone would need. And so there's the strategy, which is, hey, we're going to help you make the plan. But then we're actually going to help you do the plan as well, because there's an AI copywriter with different prompts that you can use it for. There's the social media scheduler as well. And we're continually retooling the things to make them more impactful and more time saving. But, we don't want you to have to go to 4 other tabs in order to take this task that was on your marketing calendar and mark it complete. Like, it's super cool to just see, hey, I need to schedule my social media content, and in the same calendar, literally just do it, right?
Yeah.
Without having to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Which again, like I have too many tabs open right now.
Same.
Looking at my computer, I'm like, yeah, it's nice to reduce all of that, condense it into one place, and have just this like one destination. You could call Enji like your CMO if that's what you need to do, but it's like having that place where you have this creative outlet for you to really dump all of your marketing ideas, but also be strategic with it. I think that's the play, and that's again why I love this so much. But Tayler, this has been so fun. I have a few rapid fire questions before we officially wrap up. So are you ready for them?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one is, what piece of advice would you give to a brand new podcaster or content creator?
Ooh, that would be to create a content distribution plan, which is basically marketing, right? Like, after you put all this effort into getting a podcast episode recorded, how are you going to make sure that people know it exists, that it's there for them to listen to? Because like we talked about earlier, if you build it, they will not come.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, my next one is a 2-part question. And the first piece is, what is the dream podcast you would love to be on? And who is a dream podcast guest you would love to interview?
Ooh, that's... I recently got connected with Jess Ekstrom, and I'm pretty obsessed with her. And so I actually think that she's the answer to both of those questions. I would love to be on her podcast because as a teacher, I love public speaking, and I love like the mission of her work. But then also I did have the opportunity to just have a conversation with her once, and she's so chill and so fun to talk to that I would love to have her on as a guest as well.
I love that. I would totally listen to either one of those. You on hers, her on yours. Like, I think that would be such a fun conversation. Okay. And then my last question is, do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
Ooh, recovering perfectionist. Recovering. Definitely more of a control freak than a perfectionist. I've always been very biased for action.
Mm.
And so sometimes that means, yeah, I kick the bird out the nest when the thing's only half baked.
Yeah.
But there are certain things. Enji's homepage is a good example. Like, ask me how many times I've already rewritten that thing. And we've only been live for like a year and a half. So yeah, there are some aspects of life and business where I pursue perfection. But in general, I try to not let myself get stuck in that loop.
Oh, that's so good. And you are among so many other recovering perfectionists around here. So you are in great company. But this was so fun, Tayler. So we kind of skimmed over your podcast. So I want to call it out, like tell everybody where they can listen to your show, what the name of it is, and where they can go to snag their free trial of Enji.
Yeah, so you can go snag your free trial of Enji on the website, so enji.co. And the podcast is the Pretty Okay podcast, because how are we all doing? Pretty okay. And so the website is prettyokpodcast.com, and the Instagram handle is @prettyokpodcast.
Okay, and I have to give a plug for Enji's Instagram because I love it so much. I think that you have been, I don't know if it's just experimenting with like different content or what, but you pop up in my feed and I'm like, oh, what's Tayler doing today? Like, she's going to do something funny. So if you're into humor, like Tayler nails it every time. Like every time I see it and I'm like, oh my God, 1, it's so relatable. 2, it's hilarious. And 3, it just like solidifies like this was a good follow. It's a good follow on Instagram. So I'm going to make a plug for that too, because it's really good.
Thank you. Yes, if you'd like to see me do ridiculous things, please, you can follow on Instagram to see all that ridiculousness.
Yes. Okay, Tayler, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was a masterclass in marketing and so helpful.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, we need to have more conversations, because I know that this is just like 2% of all of the things that you and I could nerd out about. So thank you.
Yes, we'll
so
have
much
to have
for
a part
having
2
me.
soon.